Okay, so good afternoon. Wow, and welcome to the 41st CALLERLAB convention in Reno, Sparks, Nevada. Today is the 14th of April 2014, and this is the session called Competition, the Last Taboo. I came up with that. It was wonderful. I am Bryan Clark from Vancouver, Canada, and beside me here is Brett Kappenman from Seattle, Washington, or thereabouts.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. And we're going to be presenting to you some stuff from the about competition, not just the teen competition, but competition in general. So for years and years and years, all I've heard from everybody is that there's no room in square dancing for competition. So I just want to let you know that CALLERLAB has been around for 41 years. The Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Competition has been around for 65. This year we're celebrating our 65th year. So we've been competing in square dancing for longer than CALLERLAB has been around. So it's hard to say that there isn't room in square dancing for competition. It's just that it's not as well advertised. And functionally, we really only do it in the Pacific Northwest, so it's not as prevalent. But for the most part, in the rest of the world, square dancing is done recreationally, and people enjoy dancing, and they don't feel that there's any room for competition because of what competition does. Competition does some ugly things to certain people. It tends to make them a little bit, competitive.
You mean the parents?
No. I'm just talking about competition in general. We'll talk about what it does to the teen parents later. But why would anyone compete in anything? Look at tennis. Tennis is a very recreational thing. Everybody, a bunch of people that I know, they love to play tennis. Would they go into a competition and compete against others? No, they just do it for exercise, and they do it to have fun with their friends, and then afterwards they go out for drinks, which I think, the exercise component helps them with the drinking because it justifies the ends. They feel that they've had enough exercise. They can have the wings and the drinks and whatever. Ballroom dance is the same thing. There's a lot of people who practice ballroom dancing, and they have no want or need for competition. They're fabulous ballroom dancers, and they go out and they dance all the time. But do they need to compete? No, they don't need to compete. And so, but is there ballroom dance competitions? Absolutely. And are the ballroom dancers who dance in competitions extremely good dancers? Absolutely. And tennis players, are the professional tennis players who go out and compete, are they really good? Absolutely. That's the whole idea, is if you want to excel or be the best at what you're doing, the way to do that in an environment that is, fun, competition is one of the best ways to do that. I also wrote down here dog shows. I don't know why people compete dog shows, but they do. The dogs do, but the people are the ones that are most interested in it. The dogs really don't care. They're just walking around. But the people are the ones who primp and make the dogs look wonderful. So as far as square dancing goes, most people don't understand or see what the positive aspects are of square dance competition. In our case, in the Pacific Northwest, the positive thing is just the teamwork that comes out of it. Not only do we have amazing teamwork amongst the kids, they actually get to do or be the best that they can be in front of other dancers from other clubs. And we have a very friendly competition. We don't throw stones, we don't yell at each other, but they get out there, they dance, and the judges judge whether or not they've performed better than the others. And we'll explain, or Brent will explain most of the teen festival stuff. So I ask certain questions here. Why should we compete? And we compete because it promotes growth. Back in the old days, square dancing only had, so many calls. And, back when the Teen Town competition started 65 years ago, it was square dancing of 65 years ago. It wasn't the square dancing we have now. It was what square dancing was 65 years ago. And they got some 4-H groups together, and they brought them in, and they ended up turning into square dance clubs, and they got them to compete together. And that was basically how it all started. So square dancing has grown over the years, and as it's grown, the competition has grown with it. And so the dancers that dance at the competition, although they're only dancing mainstream and plus, it's a kind of mainstream and plus that normal dancers don't dance. And they dance it as though they're, Olympic dancers, as I call them. The other one it says here, competition advances human civilization. And I had some notes here. It says, if there were no competition, we would not have landed on the moon. So, of course, because of the Cold War and everything else, we wanted to beat the Russians to the moon. Well, when I say we, Americans wanted to beat the Russians to the moon. I'm Canadian, by the way. Americans wanted to beat the Russians to the moon, so what did you do? You competed with them in a very friendly way, sort of, and you guys made it to the moon much before they did. So, it has advanced human civilization. All of the technology that has come out of the NASA program is awesome. The Cold War competition created many different advancements in technology. Square dancing can grow because of competition. So in the Pacific Northwest, we have a large number of callers in the Pacific Northwest because of the square dance competition. Myself and Brett being two of them, but they're, almost all of the callers in our area have been affected by it one way or another. Either they were competitors, or they were judges, or they've been involved one way or another training kids or doing something. So it's been a very positive aspect for our area. Some of the parents who deal with the kids, they end up becoming dancers. So it's positive in that sense. We end up getting a lot of extra dancers because of this. And then here it says, it forces us to be more creative. So the competitive dancers, I wrote this, they think outside of the box. So, rather than just thinking about how to do the call, we think of how to do it upside down and backwards. And so the competitive dancer thinks a little bit more about the activity that we do than the recreational dancer does, because we're told to dance it as well as we can. The other side of it is that we add flourishes and extend the square dance landscape. So the display dancers who are just dancing displays, they make them look as wonderful as possible. And we're going to show you a video later of exactly what that looks like. And you'll be amazed at how well these kids dance. And then here it says, it teaches us. For someone to win, someone has to lose. And so you have winners and losers. And I don't like to think of it as winners and losers. I like to think of it as winners and those who haven't won yet. And so the people who haven't won yet, the next year that they compete, they work harder on their practice, and they end up getting better. And as they dance longer, they get more experienced, and they're able to dance better. And that's how we make the dancers work better and become better dancers, is just through experience. And then it says, if you take competition out of the picture, there's no motivation to grow. So in the Pacific Northwest, we've had competition for years, and our area has actually a pretty good base of square dancers. And because the square dance competition is only mainstream and plus, we're not forcing the kids to dance challenge. However, they're dancing mainstream as though they were challenge dancers. So we've basically made them grow, and they're much better dancers than most of your mainstream and plus dancers would be. I wrote down that it promotes taking chances and trying something new. So as the kids get out there on the floor, you wouldn't believe how nervous the kids are when they get out on the floor to dance mysteries. They don't know what's going to come to them. They get very nervous. But despite their nervousness, they perform exceptionally well because they're very well trained. It makes us more goal-oriented, and it builds teamwork. So, the goal is to win a trophy. And, as kids, we put kids into soccer, we put kids into baseball, we put them into all types of competition, and what it teaches them is teamwork. It teaches them competition. It teaches them how to be sportsmanlike, and that's they're the exact same things that we teach at the Teen Festival, and it works very well. competition prepares us for the real world. The thing that I'm scared of most nowadays is in schools they're having sports days where nobody wins, everybody gets a ribbon because you've participated, and because they don't want to make any one child feel like they're a loser because they might be ridiculed or they might have trouble. And I have a problem with that, in the fact that you need to learn those lessons as a child, because when you get into the business world and your first day of work and you haven't done what your boss wanted you to do and your boss dresses you down, you can't handle it, and you don't have the coping skills to deal with it because you've never dealt with that kind of scenario. But as a kid, when you get into competition, you learn to deal with disappointment, because you don't win the first time out of the gate. And as you practice and you do things, you become better at it. And that's what you're teaching your kids, or that's what you're teaching people, is the more you practice it, the better you become at it. The chances are you'll do well. And so in the business world, the more you work, the harder you are, you might get promoted. Those kind of things. And that's really what it teaches us about the real world. Life isn't fair. And then the other one was that it's natural. All creatures, great and small, compete. Whether it's out on the savannah, the animals are competing for food or competing for anything. As humans, we're doing it a much nicer way. We're just competing at square dancing, which is a lot more fun, I believe. And then I said it makes life more entertaining. So watching Dancing with the Stars is entertaining. I started watching it, and I'm hooked on it now. Watching the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival, if you ever get a chance to come and watch it, I beg you to do it. It only costs $3 to get in, and you get to dance on Friday night, and then all day Saturday you watch the kids compete, and it's amazing how well they do. So let's talk about types of square dance competitions. So I'll start with non-organized, because we're not just going to talk about the Pacific Northwest, because there's a bunch of different competitions that have been around. So you can do a DBD tip, where at the end of your dance, maybe just at the end of your dance, just after the dance finishes, you tell the dancers, we're going to put on a DBD tip, and you guys can see how well you do. And as a caller, you get up there and you get to test out some new material. The dancers get to try to dance some material that they don't normally dance. Maybe you call it a little bit faster. You call something a little more challenging to them. And it challenges their minds, and they think, oh, maybe if I practice a little more, I can dance the DBD tip and do well. So there's no prize for this. You just get to call hard, and the dancers get to be happy with the fact that they made it through. The next method you can use is a DBD tip, where the winners get to line up for coffee first. So you do a tip at the end, and you say, okay, well, I'll do it. Well, you do the tip just before coffee, and you say, okay, well, whoever does the best, you get to line up for coffee first. And just a tiny incentive to let them know that they've won something. The next one was doing the same kind of thing. You do a DBD tip, and the winning square gets scratch and win tickets. So as a caller, you go out to the store, you buy some scratch and win tickets, and you give them a prize. So the prize could be anything. It could just be a donated bottle of wine or something. It could be anything. So the organized ones that I know of, they've had them at the Nationals for the last few years. I think it started in 2009 in Long Beach, and 2009 was kind of a fun year. They kept asking me if I wanted to be involved in it, because I was with the teen festival, and I said no, because I didn't agree with the way that they were doing it. And I'll tell you what they were doing. It's called Last Square Standing, and there's top 3 prizes for whoever was the winner. And what they had was they had one judge per square, and they stood there with a sign. And if they made a mistake, they held the sign up for 10 seconds, and they would count 10 seconds out loud. And if the dancers got back into their formation and continued dancing, the sign went down, and they continued dancing. But if they were broke down for longer than 10 seconds, they were told to leave the floor. So it was a last square standing. So as you broke down and the whole square went down, you had ended up having to leave the floor, and that was it was neat, because at that particular convention, they had 50 squares on the floor. And I was watching it from up in the stands, and it was amazing to watch. However, as somebody who's a competitive dancer, I was watching what they were doing out there on the floor, and we had Randy Doherty and Tony Oxendine calling. And they were calling live, and I know as well as anybody else that the square that's going to win is the square they're sight calling off of. So it's not really a fair competition. But as an exhibition of competition, it was a lot of fun. Everybody that danced it, I think they had a great time. Everyone I talked to about it had a great time. The next year that they did it, they didn't have as many squares competing. I think they had around 30. But it was still just as fun the next year. And I think it's a great event. But the reality is, if your last name is Hanelau, you're going to win. That's all I know. You put Jennifer Hanelau and their daughter, I can't remember her name, you put them in the square, they'll win for sure. Or actually, the first year, the winners, there was a gay square of dancers, and the main person in their square that was dancing, of course not gay, was Debbie Cedar. Yeah, and you look at them, and of course they're going to win. So it was, and then the square 2 that won, the second prize winners were John Marshall and Mike Seastrom. They had a square together, and it was a whole square caller, so you knew they were going to be close. So, but it was, as I say, it was a very fun event. I really enjoyed it. But as I say, at the time I didn't want to be involved because I didn't agree with how they were competing. I know that at Utah, it was Scott Smith and the Chaparral Boys started a square dance competition at the seniors games. And what they would do is they would do a last square standing where they would get up and they would call. And then as the squares broke down, somebody would walk over to them, tap them on the shoulder and say, you need to sit down. And then whoever won, they were the last square standing. And it was just fun, just for fun. And they were giving out small prizes, and that was about it. So, it's just something that dancers can do and can enjoy. And there's no pressure. You don't have to practice. You just have to get up and dance to the callers. And I think that's fine. That's perfectly okay. And what it did was it allowed square dancing to become a large event at the seniors games in Utah. And so it sort of promoted square dancing in that area, which was wonderful. The other one that was out there is California would have at their state festival, they had a square dance competition. And they started it with the youth, and they would only get the youth dancers out there, and they would do a last square standing type of competition as well. So callers would get up there, and they'd call fast, and they'd call hard, and they'd get the dancers to get out on the floor. And again, whoever broke down, they'd tap them on the shoulder, and they'd have to move off the floor. It seems like that's the most popular method for square dance competitions because it's easy to administer. It doesn't take very much to do. So what we do in the Pacific Northwest is we do timed squares to sight called material, or sorry, not timed squares. We do timed squares to pre-recorded material. So we'll have a caller, we call him a mystery caller. He will put together, or she will put material together that is designed to be difficult at the level for the kids, and it's, as I say, mainstream and plus. And the kids have to attempt to dance it. And we have 5 timers around the square, and just like the Olympics, we take the top score and the bottom score and drop them off, and then we average the other 3. And the timers who are timing it have already danced the material, so they've seen it and they know what's expected. And all they do is they watch and make sure the dancers are dancing what's being called. You have a question? Yeah. Hold on.
What are the timers timing?
Okay, so the timers, they have a stopwatch, and they're watching the dancers dance the material as it's being called. And as they successfully dance the calls, the watch is on. As soon as they break down, the watch goes off.
And also, the timers have danced these mysteries, as we call them, in advance. So they know what the material is. So they know the correct way and the incorrect way to do it. So that helps them in their timing. So
that's part of our Pacific Northwest Teen Festival. The other part that we have is we have dancing to singing calls and making the display look very polished. That's a different side of things, where the kids practice a singing call. and they get out and they dance it, and they try to make it look as pretty as they can. They may add flourishes to make it as beautiful as possible, but instead of me explaining most of that stuff, I'm going to pass the mic over to Brett, who will go over what we do at the Pacific Northwest Team Square Dance Festival. Go ahead.
Thanks. So, hi, I'm Brett Kappenman from Renton. Known Bryan for a long time, actually. I think we competed against each other 1 year. I lost. He won. So, yeah, surprising. Bryan's used a lot of references to the Olympics, and really that's what it is for the kids. It is like the Olympics. I mean, we start off with a grand march, just like we see at the Olympics. The kids get to parade through. We get to give all the parents and advisors. We all parade through, and they do the Pledge of Allegiance is down the U.S. and the national anthems, and the kids, that's kind of the kickoff. The kids really get hyped up and excited for that. And that's the start of the day. And from there, it progresses on. There's several different competitions that go on throughout the day. There's a square dance competition, obviously. There's also a round dance competition that's coupled with that. There's a round dance cueing competition. There's also a calling competition. And then at the end of the night, there's kind of the fun part for the kids to just relax, and it's just kind of all the clubs, all the club members getting together and performing what they call an exhibition. Not exhibitionist, Bryan, just an exhibition. And that's basically kind of a free-for-all. They can do whatever they want. You may see some ballroom in there, you may see some line dancing in there, you may see squares, etc. So kind of getting back to what Bryan was talking about, we'll kind of start off with the display. Well, what is a display? Well, display is a caller on the stage, calling to his own square in most cases. Sometimes it could be a caller from another club. And what they do is they go through a routine that has been submitted, and it's been approved by the chief judge of the competition. I won't go into all the details and the politics of the organization and everything because it'll bore you and put you to sleep. But it's been approved. Bryan's like, please don't.
And just like any square dancing organization, there is an amazing amount of politics involved. But we do it for all the kids. That's why we're there.
Absolutely. So you've got a caller on the stage. You can't quite see the caller in this video here, but I think as the video starts, you will be able to see it. So basically what this is the Mavericks. This is a club that my dad actually started many, 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 many years ago, one of the oldest clubs in Washington State. I actually had the honor of calling them on their 50th anniversary, so my dad started them, and then I got to call for them. So better than me, as Bryan said, better than me just talking about it, this is a display, and this is all pre-choreographed, and the goal of they're being judged on several different things. They're being judged on their timing. They're being judged on how much they're enjoying what they're doing. They're being judged on are they jumping the call and dancing the call before the caller actually calls it. So there's this whole sequence, and we have a book of rules that we kind of go through. And again, I'm not going to bore you with that, but there's actually also two more squares dancing this. You can't see them. There's another square on the other side, on either side of them, and they don't know the call. The center square knows the call. The other two squares do not.
Mike Turner from Wichita, Kansas. Just clarification. I'm not sure I heard you say, was it related to 4-H? Or
when it started, it was originally. Okay. It was 4-H clubs that all got together, and they started with that. And then, as everything else, it's kind of evolved on from there. I don't think at this time we have a 4-H club involved. The Shirts and Skirts up in Everett, Washington, were, but they're not competing at this point. So we're going to go ahead and play the video, and then I'll kind of progress and explain kind of what's going on after we see it.
Okay. Our next caller for the Mavericks is Julie Lewis. She is a junior caller.
And watch carefully.
Head lady center, take out the chain. So where is the passion we needed the most? You pick up the leaves and the magic is lost. Out and left and weave the ring. They tell me your blue skies fade to gray. The dough side and I don't need
So one of the comments that there's a guy standing right by the speaker over there, bald guy. He trained the square, and he told me after this that this particular time they danced it was the only time they've done it without dropping their hats on the floor. And so at the end of this, you'll see how happy they are with their performance.
And the other thing that I'll add to what Bryan also said is, you got to remember that there's a lot of other clubs, competing clubs against, this was the Mavericks that were competing against this club, and they were all cheering too, because to time that, and again, it kind of goes back to what we said, in the Olympics, you got a volleyball team, you've got any other sort of type of teamwork, the timing, the complexity to put that together and to time it and to make it all work, and like Bryan said, they only got it one time. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing to be able to do that. Incidentally, the bald guy that he was talking about is actually a good friend of mine, and he and I competed together, and I actually introduced him to his wife, his future wife at that time. So again, there's all these relationships that go on. What you saw down there in the previous video, it's not on the screen right now, but you saw three people down there on the tables. Those are the judges. And then you also, there was also judges kind of on the other two squares on either side. This would be a side position here. Is this the same, is this the mystery, or is this, okay, this is the mystery. So we dance three across. The two outer positions don't know the call, the center position does, and then they're judged on timing, how well, how accurately they can dance that display. The second part, and this all usually happens, in the morning and then into the early afternoon. The second part of it is so the display is just for how much you saw a lot of what we call styling. The styling was, when you get back home, are they going to do a balance? Or are they going to do a split away from each other, make a loop, and come back in? All those type of things, all those extra flourishes and everything, the kids just love those. And a lot of times, me being a caller for a teen club, I'll kind of give them an idea, and then it's so much fun just to see them work with that, and they all come together and come up with an idea. So the second square dancing competitive part is the mysteries. And as Bryan said, the mysteries are pre-recorded. As we talked about earlier, the timers have danced those mysteries. On top of that, and they're danced on total amount of time. There's actually, Bryan knows the count. Is there 4 timers, 5 timers per square?
There's 5 timers per square, and we take the top score or the top time and the bottom time, and we take them out just like they would in the Olympics, as they tend to do. And the other 3 times, we then average those times, and that's the time for the square. Because, as a timer, you might not necessarily see everything, so we sort of put all 5 dancers or timers around the square, and we have them watching. And the times are usually fairly close, but sometimes you have somebody who's not paying attention or is a little more lenient on the kids. And so, as I say, we take the top score and the bottom score and drop them off.
So we're going to see a mystery here, and you may say, well, how do you prepare for that? Well, for me, it's like trying to get inside Bryan Clark's brain. I mean, which is really difficult. In some place, I probably don't want to go. But at the same time, what I do is I try and be very creative. For those of you that have gone to the Proficient Plus, which Bryan just did with Randy Doherty, for me, the kind of stuff that we saw in there and the kind of things that he was calling, those are the kind of things that I train my dancers on. And the great thing about kids is they're very forgiving. They don't care if you call something that doesn't work. It's like, well, that didn't work. try something else. And they'll do anything. I mean, I could call box the gnat and roll, or half box the gnat and spread, or what. They don't care. They'll do any of the weird kind of stuff. So what we're going to see here is the mystery. This is the Jackson Jills. They're from Kent. Rod Alex formerly called for that club, and now he's moved away, and now I'm actually the caller for that club. So, and I don't know if Brian wanted to add anything to that.
So this is roughly 10 minutes long. I want you to pay close attention at about 4.5 minutes. It gets really cool at that point. Here we go.
Hello, this is Bryan Clark from Burnaby, British Columbia. This is the 2009.
Yes, that is Bryan Clark's Calling the Mystery.
Senior Final Mystery. Countdown. 3, 2, 1. Start. 8 bound to the partner. Enter and bound to the corners. 2. 4 ladies chain 3 quarters. Turn the girls 1 quarter more. All the heads have a diamond. Do a diamond circulate. Sides have a diamond circulate. Heads work with heads, sides work with sides. Diamond circulate. In the same diamonds, flip the diamond. The right or left branch.
As you can see, they're already down.
All the heads pass the ocean. Follow your neighbor. Centers trade. Hands spread. Linear cycle. Star through. Track 2. Recycle. Veer to the left. Boys run. Girls zoom. Boys circulate. And a right or left branch.
The other thing to notice is they're all trying to enjoy this too. So they've got to get a smile on their face.
All sides, do a right or left through and back away. 4 ladies chain 1 quarter. All 4 ladies flutter wheels. Side positions span the top. Do your part while the girls peel the top, the boys extend. Flip the diamond. And a right or left branch. Be a girl and square your set, you're kind of close. All the heads go right or left through. Centers do a Dixie style to a wave. Do your part while the boys peel the top, the girls extend. Boys left swing through. Flip the diamond. Linear cycle. Past the ocean, and a right or left branch. Promenade back up. All the sides slide through. Double pass through. Track 2. Linear cycle. Load the boat. Single circle 3 quarters to a wave. The centers trade. Spin chain and exchange your gears. Linear cycle. Star through. Track 2. Swing through. Boys circulate. Explode the wave. Tag the line. Face in. Pass through. Do a wheel and deal. Double pass through. Face in. Slide through. Centers twice. Back away and should be home. Heads left, touch 1 quarter. The boys left, touch a quarter. Each box walk and dodge. Trade by. Boys touch 1 quarter. Those facing touch 1 quarter. Walk and dodge.
Okay, so now they're broken down.
Heads peel off. Centers face in. Everybody slide through. The centers roll. Back away and you should be home. All sides pass the ocean. Extend. Centers cast off 3 quarters. The ends do half a circulate. The center diamonds circulate. The ends hinge and roll. The centers cut the diamond and roll. Very centers pass through. Everybody slide through. The centers wheel and deal and sweep 1 quarter. The ends trade and roll. Pass through. Wheel and deal. Double pass through. Centers face in. Centers pass through. Everybody do a U-turn back and should be home. All the heads left touch 1/4 and spread. Side boys extend. Head boys dodge left. Head boys cross fold. The side boys and the head girls face in. Delay for the whole call. The side boys start for everyone, and if you can, do 7 consecutive touch quarters, alternating hands, beginning on the right. Go. The side boys and the head girls face left. Everybody star through. The centers veer left and bend the line. The others finish a Ferris wheel. Square your set like this. Face your new corner. Pass through. Star through. And you should be home. On the side, square through 2. The near box, swing through. The far box, slide through. Far box, touch 1/4. Those facing, pass through. All the heads trade. All the boys zoom. Everyone hinge. The far wave, fan the top. The near box, follow your neighbor. Those facing directly, pass through. The near line of 4, do a half tag and scoot back. The far line, cast off 3/4. The near box, follow your neighbor and spread. The far box, past the ocean. All the boys run. Those facing directly, pass through. Wheel and deal. The near box, do your part, pass to the center and roll. The far box, 3/4 zoom. Centers, single circle to a right left grand. Meet a girl and promenade home. It's a very short trip. All the heads pass the ocean. Follow your neighbor. The centers, cast off 3/4. Everybody do a diamond circulate. Each diamond fan the top. Flip the diamond. Fan the top. Couples circulate. Bend the line. Load the boat. Touch 1/4. Acey-deucey. Recycle. And around the left grand. Meet a girl and square your set because you should be close to home. All the sides pass through. Separate and around 1 to a line. Star through. Double pass through. Track 2. Swing through. And the boys run. Bend the line. Do a right left through. Dixie style to a wave. Centers trade. Spin chain gears.
Was left-handed, and the kids have absolutely no trouble dancing it.
Trade the wave. Boys circulate. Swing through. And a right left grand. On the third hand, promenader back home.
And you notice they always reach out and touch somebody? Their formation awareness is awesome.
Star through. The near column, zoom. Far column, double pass through. Do your part. While the far column does their part of track 2, the near column dodge. Far column, Dixie style to a wave while the near box hinge. The boys pass through. Girls trade. Spin chain through.
Notice there wasn't even
recycle or wheel and deal.
hesitation there. They just did it because they know the definition.
Center girls trade. The heads run. Pass through. Bend the line. All the boys spin the top. Girls do a left spin the top. Those facing start right and left through. Slide through, the centers roll, back away, and you should be home. All the sides slide through. All 8 circulate. Spin chain the gears. Girls run. Couples circulate. Boys do half a scoop back. Everybody do a diamond circulate. All boys hinge. Each box of 4 do a walk and dodge. Finish the Ferris wheel. Centers pass the ocean. Centers swing through. The ends divide. Right, left, grand. Promenade at homes. All the heads span the top. Extend. Reverse order, spin the top. Girls fold. Peel the top. All 8 circulate. Peel the top. Split circulate. Centers cross run. The boys run. Girls trade. Do a Ferris wheel. Centers sweep 1 quarter. Out and left your corner. Come back to your promenade home. When you get there, bow to the partner. And the corners 2. Countdown. 3, 2, 1. Stop.
So you'll notice behind them there's a big table filled with trophies. So all of the categories that we have at the Teen Festival, we've got preteen dancers, we have junior dancers, we have intermediate dancers, senior dancers, and it's all based on experience and or age. We have preteen callers, we have junior callers, intermediate callers, senior callers. We have cuers, we have round dancers, which have multiple categories that they have. And so all of those different categories have first, second, third, and champion. And so those are all of the trophies for the kids. And some of the trophies were, donated by callers' wives who, their husband had passed away, and they're dedicated memorial trophies, and other ones are from callers associations and what have you. So we've done fairly well over the years.
We have, and this, of course, was the senior. That there is other levels too. The preteens obviously aren't going to have to do all that, but the preteens do have a mystery as well. And going back to the previous video, there was a caller on the stage, and again, she's being judged on her timing, her enunciation, her clarity, all those types of things that we would want. And some people say, like kind of Bryan started out with, well, why would we want to judge what they're doing? But I mean, let's face the reality here. We're judged every dance we call as callers by how many people come through the door and if they come back again, right? If they didn't like the way we were calling, or they didn't like our dance or whatever, they may not come back again. And with this competition, for me, I can say, and I'm still calling for a teen club. Bryan's kind of gone a different route, or route, as you say in Canada. And he's gone more towards that. He actually helps to coordinate the mysteries and the timers, and gives them suggestions on how to build those mysteries, because they do take a lot of time to build. I mean, there's a lot of energy and time that goes into those mysteries, and there's certain things that we know have been done in the past, and we don't want to make those same mistakes again. And sometimes we do make the same mistakes again. But for me as a caller, like I said earlier, for me as a caller, it has made me a better caller. It has made me a much better sight caller. Because, again, I can call just about anything to the kids, and they eat it up. They love it. Spin chain through from that setup that Bryan had there. They didn't care. Using trades, relay the deucey. They don't care, because they know the definitions, and we have built and trained very proficient dancers. Now, the flip side of that, and I will tell you the flip side of that is, it's hard for them sometimes to go out to regular dances. They do it, but it is a challenge for them, because the dance isn't as challenging for them. When Bryan Clark comes to town, we all jump in and go for that. But it is a double-edged sword, and we have to be somewhat cautious with that. And go ahead, Bryan, if you're going to say something.
There is another side to that. It's happened on Facebook for us. One of our ex-teen dancers, who happens to be a judge at the competition, she decided that just out of the blue, she created this group called the Dancing Diamonds, and she threw it up on Facebook, and she invited all of her old friends from square dancing, and said, "Hey, I'm going to a dance this weekend. Anybody else want to come?" And unlike a club organization, it wasn't a a club event. There's no elected officials. There's nothing. It's just a space on Facebook where she put together a bunch of friends who used to square dance and said, hey, I'm going to a dance this weekend. Anybody want to come? And she started with, I think it was about 42 members, and now she has 194 members. And anytime we get this notification of, hey, I'm going to a dance this weekend, dancers show up. And we get 2 or 3 extra dancers at a square, or at a dance, or 2 or 3 extra squares at a dance. and what you end up with are younger dancers anywhere from mid-20s through early 40s. And of course myself included, and I've been coming down and dancing in Seattle quite a bit whenever these things show up on Facebook and if I have time. And a lot of our old friends who we used to compete with are now going out to these dances and supporting them and having a lot of fun. So that's been sort of a side effect of the Teen Fest recently anyways.
And kind of along the same thing, you might think, well, they're competitors. Well, they are, but I mean, I kind of look at this, and like the phrase or not, I kind of call square dancing the NASCAR of dancing, because we have all these different clubs competing, but we're really all friends. We all get together for meetings. We get together and hang out with friends. Again, like I said, the gentleman that was standing up there by the stage, good friend of mine, and even across clubs between clubs from here all the way up to camp. I mean, I never would have met somebody like Bryan Clark outside of square dancing. Our paths would just have never crossed, and they have, and I've developed a good friend as a result of that. And is it for everybody? No, but the other thing that it really does for me, and what I enjoy seeing, is like in our club, we have kind of kids from a lot of different backgrounds. We've got kids that are in drama. We've got kids that are in sports. We've got kids that are just kind of quiet and just don't really do well in social situations. We bring those kids into those square dance clubs, and the kids are accepting of them. They don't care. They don't judge them. They don't look at them. They come in, and then we teach them how to dance, and now suddenly they're part of something. And that, to me, is the real big thing for me, is because anybody can learn. If you can walk, you can dance, and that's the great thing about square dancing. Now, you do it the best? No. You do it better than somebody else? Maybe not. But it's such an open door for kids to be able to invite other kids and to have such a great time, and that's why I enjoy it so much.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, should we have competition in square dancing? Well, we've had it for 65 years, and it's continuing to go. And I think it'll go for at least another 20 years or so. We have no idea, because our numbers are down just like everybody else's. The kids aren't as good at promoting themselves as they have done in the past. But the clubs are still going. We're still having the Teen Fest every year. Should we do something like this for adults? I say, why not? We have some exceptionally proficient dancers around the world. The problem is, I bet if we did a square dance competition, first of all, we'd have to tell the challenge dancers they couldn't compete, because they're just too good. Second of all, they could compete dancing challenge. They just couldn't compete dancing mainstream or plus. Although I guess if you force them to dance plus, it might even the floor out a little bit, because no one can dance plus. But the thing that I would look at is I figure that basically the Germans would probably win, because they're exceptionally good dancers. I've been there multiple times, and when I dance there, I see what they dance, and I go, wow, these guys can dance really well. I remember I was calling once with Dave Wilson in Germany, and there was nothing that the two of us could call that gave problems to the floor. And I'm insane. I do a lot of weird stuff. IPAC 2003. Oops. Hold on. Don't put.
Well, we're going to repeat it, so.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But that we find that too, even in the competition. I mean, the level of the dancers and the proficiency of the teens that we have now has gone down. There's all sorts of factors involved in that. There's this thing called the internet. There's video games. There's other things. And have we figured out how to get those kids pulled in? No, but we're working on it.
We did have a few years where the executive committee of the teen festival said that the mysteries were too hard for the kids and we needed to make them easier. And they specifically asked us to get a professional plus caller to call the mysteries. And so I did. And surprise enough, the kids danced the mysteries without making any mistakes. It's really hard to judge them on that. And on top of that, the kids came up to me personally and said, what was that? We want it really hard. They want something challenging. They want to be challenged. And that's what they're used to. That's what they practice for. And so from that point on, the mysteries progressively have gotten a little bit harder over the years, and they've gone back up to almost where they used to be back in the 80s. But back in the 80s, we had our largest numbers. Back when I started, there were 1,200 kids at the festival competing. Now we have around 250. So it's not as big as it used to be. But we still have the festival. It still runs all day long. It's a nice, busy day for all of us, and we're all tired at the end of it. But it's a great deal of fun, and I totally recommend it for anybody. And I would still, as I say, recommend it for adults. What they're doing at the Nationals with the competition, I think, is great fun. But, it's not as structured as this. I would like to see something structured, and I'd like to see it be an international thing where we get dancers from all over the world who want to compete to try to do it. I'm not forcing people to compete. It's just if you want to. But we'd have to have an organization sponsor it, or create some kind of an event, or have it coincide with Nationals or coincide with CALLERLAB or something. Do we have any questions? Hold on.
One thing I notice is that, obviously in a competition like this, you have adults who are judging, and at the national convention, if I remember correctly from Anaheim, I got recruited to be a judge out of the caller's hospitality room because they didn't have enough for the number of squares that they had. So obviously the challenge is to get the right number of proficient judges.
But I guess that is a challenge. But I would also say that they underestimated how many squares and what the interest was. So that's a good thing in my opinion.
So at Long Beach when we had the first competition, before the national, there were 3 squares signed up. They thought it was going to be a dismal turnout. And then at the convention, everybody got together and they said, hey, why don't we try this competition thing? And then everybody signed up, and they had 45, I think it was 45 or 50 squares out on the floor. It was crazy. So that's why they needed extra judges. They weren't expecting to have that many because they only had 3 signed up before the competition, or before the national. Barry had a question.
Barry Clasper from Toronto, and I'm a member of the EC, which is the organization that plans these conventions, and I pushed hard to get this session going, which is kind of ironic because 20 years ago I'd have told you the last thing I would want to see in square dancing is competition or anything like it. And that's partly because when I was a youngster, I was always the last guy picked for the team. I'm uncoordinated. I can't do sports. And so for me, the word competition sort of equated to humiliation. And I liked an activity that didn't have that element in it, that I was always attempting to be better than somebody else or to beat somebody at something. But I've actually completely done a 180 on that in the last few years. And the reason behind that is, and I'd just like to kind of give you an idea where I see competition might fit in our square dance activity and what contribution it might make to our activity. When people compete over something, they refine their skills and they hone their skills. And you get to see what the best at something looks like. You kind of get a model. And we are one of the very few activities that I can think of that has kind of a skill set based base to it, and where we have programs which are intended to kind of indicate a level of expertise at something that you're doing and a level of mastery at something that you're doing, and yet we have absolutely no way to measure it. We have, you can walk out on a C1 floor, and all you have to do is say, I think I'm a C1 dancer. And that's the end of it. Same with mainstream, same with plus. Sure, we graduate people out of these classes, but usually the graduation certificate means they paid all their fees. It doesn't really imply that they can do the thing. And so we've got a lot of people out there on the floor that aren't really competent at what they're trying to do. And I'll give you this one to chew on. I think the way we're structured right now actually serves to weed out the best dancers. The best dancers get frustrated and leave because we don't have any objective way to tell people, yes, you're in the right place doing this, or no, you have more to learn, or you've got, more practice to do. What competition does is it sort of calibrates a bar. You can say when something is really good, it looks like that, and people can measure themselves against it, whether they compete or not. So there's lots of activities that we have where there's a competitive element that's out there, and some people are doing it. Think about golf. I mean, there's professional golf, and people look at that and they say, okay, that's what good golfing looks like. That doesn't mean I can't go out in the weekend and shoot my 140 for 9 holes, which is about where I shoot, and even have a good time at it. But I know that I'm not going to sign up for the PGA circuit or anything. So the element of competition gives you something to calibrate the level of competence that's associated with whatever you're trying to do. It gives you a model to shoot for. And I think that's where the element of competition could fit in our activity.
Virgil Forbes from Maryland. I have always been, shall we say, ambivalent about competition, despite having been caller for a club that competed at the Pacific Northwest Teen Festival 35 years ago. Because I have, one of the lines I use when I'm talking to people about square dancing, and they say, oh, is it competition? And I said, no, but it's the most complex dance form that people do simply for their own enjoyment. And that is something that, we do it because we like it. We do it because it's fun. But yet, when we look and ask the marketing committee, who are we competing against for people's recreational time? And right now, the group that I would dearly love to have are the people who are out in the Recreation Council-sponsored softball and volleyball leagues, where they compete a game at a time. Maybe they have a league, maybe they don't, but they're out there competing because competition is something that is, for lack of a better word, socialized into the American society. Everybody competes for something, for some reason. And so I'm coming around to the idea that competition, not to be the best, but just to provide this little bit of interest that we want to get in there and compete against a standard of what's the best. My golf scores aren't even as good as yours. Okay, but it's something that we're competing against softball and volleyball leagues from the rec councils. They compete. Why can't we do the same thing for the same target population?
Meg Ferguson from Saratoga, California. It's in the San Francisco Bay Area. Years ago, we had a dance called the Battle of the Sexes. It was all boy squares, all girl squares, and we'd come up with one square that was a winner. I was in the square once. And that dance has fallen by the way. The club died, etc. But we still do that once a year at our club, Bows and Bows, in Los Altos. And it really, as Barry says, the people hone their skills. They get together. There's lots of energy that night. And we have a great time.
Ken Sale from Castro Valley, California. Barry started to say some of this, but the thing I like is that the videos of it, I think I'm going to think about using as models for this is what moving to the beat looks like. This is what a square working together looks like. This is what teamwork looks like. So I think it's not just about the competitors honing their skills. I think it's modeling good skills and good behavior.
Could you make that thing available over the internet?
It's on YouTube. Yeah. So if you want, you can go to YouTube, and unfortunately, after watching the presentation this morning on marketing, he says use something that people are going to look for. Unfortunately, we use our tag, which is PNTSDF. It says Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival, and then there's a year after it. But if you just look up PNTSDF on YouTube, you will find a plethora of videos. Every year I get up on the stage and I tell all the parents, I say, the mystery caller wants to see your kids dance. They want to see their mysteries being called to the kids and see how well they do. That's one thing. The other thing is the display squares. You can see those. You can actually see most of the round dance competitors because all of their videos are on YouTube. So it's, you can watch hours and hours and hours of Teen Festival stuff probably from around 2009 onwards, because it was around that time that we started telling people to post it. And the parents don't have any issues doing that. I know some people have issues putting videos of kids up on the internet, but in this case, we've told them that YouTube is our best advertising. We like to get it out there, and probably with the marketing talk that we had this morning, we might change the way that we label it and just call it Square Dance Competition or something a little easier to find than PNTSDF. Other than that, does anyone else have any more questions? Well done.
State your name again.
Mike Turner, Wichita, Kansas. Because our state convention has a square dance competition, we sort of set up our own rules, not necessarily the same as national competition. I was just looking for some guidance to make sure we're headed in the right direction, because ours is based on mainstream, and the callers are basically given a warm-up session prior to the actual competition to get the dancers acclimated to the type of material they will be calling. But one of my concerns is that there are a lot of things that you called in the plus dancing, for example, that were fractional calls or applications like finish the call that would not necessarily be allowable in the competition that we have. So, kind of like to get in contact with you for that.
So I guess, as I said at the beginning, it allows things to grow, and over time, the Teen Festival has grown, and we started using challenge callers as mystery callers probably in 1984. We started with Dave Stevens.
85, I think.
85, yeah, with Dave Stevens, and from that point on, we started getting extra things like do your part and finish this, and skip the first part and do this, or do the second half of that, or reverse order, and on the third hand, all of these things that don't really survive on any particular level, but are typically called up in the advanced and challenge area, and it's become standard application for the Teen Festival. But whenever you're going to do something for a competition, you can just say, our competition is based on CALLERLAB rules, which, CALLERLAB has a list. They've got standard applications. They have extended applications. You can say these are the only things you can do.
And just to add one more thing to that, you'll find, and this is actually good homework for what you're talking about, read your definitions. There's a lot of things in there that you can do that you may not know. Look at do passo. Go look at the definition for do passo, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I can do all sorts of things with do passo. Go look in the definition for walk and dodge. Oh, I can do all sorts of things with walk and dodge. So those are the types of things that you guys could use that wouldn't be you wouldn't have to go into the kind of the advanced and challenged concepts.
Yeah, the second part of my thought is for the national convention, I would really like to see them also set it up by age or something along those lines, because speed obviously is the thing that separates some very, very good dancers from each other, and they just can't physically move as fast as others.
Well, and for me personally, that's one of the issues that I have with the speed and cut time and clip and moves and those. There's better ways to do it, and that's one of the reasons why we reuse pre-recorded material. One, you're not going to sight call, as Brian said, you're not going to sight call to the best square out there, and or the square you pick. Whether we want to admit it or not, when we're calling a dance, we're going to know where the best square is, and we better not be calling to that square the entire night, because most of the night the rest of the squares are going to be standing. So we have to spread that around. It's just a talent that we and same thing for this. That's why we use the pre-recorded material.
Whoops.
Hold on. Brian will bring the mic back.
Hold on. We've only got 4 minutes left.
That's why we basically set up a preset square to dance the material for the caller or callers that are calling competition, so that they're not sighting off of any particular square, but that square down in front.
And that would
a good idea.
That would work too, as long as that square obviously wasn't being judged.
Yeah.
So that would totally work. And we've actually had. This is going back many years. Something happened with the Mysteries. I don't remember how many years back this was, but they actually did have to do the Mysteries live one year. And they had put a square back over in the corner, and the callers, the competitors were out on the floor on the basketball court, and the caller was actually calling to a square off to the side. It's only happened once or twice that I know of.
It was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah. But other than that, we're pretty much out of time. So I'd like to thank all of you for coming out. And, have fun with the rest of the convention and try to make things happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Brian.